Hi, Misha here, and this is an impromptu, unrehearsed, unscripted video, and it's just going to be a table talk, first impressions, of one of the few guns that I have mentioned in previous videos and Q&As that actually interested me at SHOT Show 2023. And really, I knew these were coming, but out of the blue, I had a call from a distributor, and he actually remembered that I was looking for one, and they came in, and so I grabbed one. And that, to me, is kind of the nice thing about still having actual representatives and that one-on-one human relation versus just, hey, here's your login and password to the website, go on by yourself. I know that's probably more efficient, but, thanks to that human connection, I got a shot at one of these, and I'm pretty excited to crack it open and eventually take it to the range. So with that, let's open the case. This is what it comes in. It actually does have a cardboard outer box, so it's not just this. Pretty good size case for what's inside. Nice clamps. So already for packaging, we're doing pretty good. And on the inside, here we have it. The PMX-S pistol. This is manufactured in Italy entirely by Pietro Beretta. Still one of the few family-owned companies left in the world. And this is, of course, a semi-automatic civilian legal version of the PMX Select Fire submachine gun. Both are chambered for 9mm. And aside from lacking a stock, and of course only having a 2-position selector, it's pretty darn close. In the package here, you see you've got the firearm itself, 2 factory polymer mags, and some basic paperwork. Yeah, this just came in and it's already kind of crumply, but oh well. And that's what you get. So we will kind of talk about history, specs, my initial impressions of this little gun. Am I happy with it? Disappointed? Kind of impressed? Why was I looking forward to this? I mean, after all, it seems kind of standard. Not gonna lie. And just, again, go over my initial impressions having just cracked open this case over the weekend. The weather's been pretty crummy here, but I did just order some fresh 9mm ammo. So once the weather improves and time allows, we will definitely get out to the range and run some mags through it. But it's always kind of fun to do these in multiple parts, give an honest review. All the guns on the channel are mine. They're not T&Es. So try to give you some authentic opinions here for whatever it's worth. And those can change. Sometimes we start off really liking a gun and things don't go so well. Or sometimes we aren't really excited about a gun, but then it kind of wins us over. That's certainly happened with some of the US-made AKs. And as always, if you could, please do like, share, and subscribe. And as always, if you'd like to help support the channel, only if you can though, please go over and check out the link to the Patreon page. So with that, let's take her out of the box, do some comparisons, look inside, see how she's built, and talk about some pros, cons, some things that they did include that are neat, and some things that they probably should have included and did not. So, is this going to be a winner for Beretta? Well, stay tuned to, well, not find out, but get my initial take on the whole PMX-S pistol situation. Let's dive in. Now that we've unboxed it and talked about a few of the very basics, let's go to the table and just talk about a few of my 9mm Berettas and kind of the lineage here that gets us to the MPX. And this brought out the model 3842, redone as a semi-auto pistol. These submachine guns, beginning with the 38, 38A, and running through the 49, were really kind of it for Italy. And really many consider them to be among the best submachine guns of World War II. They were a late first generation early on, and then an early second generation with versions like this. Outstanding submachine guns for what they were. Unique double trigger system. The front trigger is for the semi-auto. The rear was full auto, but it's disabled on this one, of course. Now, the one I'm missing is, of course, the PM12 or M12 or M12S, M12S2. One day I will probably assemble one from a kit if possible. But of course I do have the CX4 Storm here. We've done a lot of videos on this. What a neat little gun that just doesn't quite get it. But it was one of the first true PCCs to come into America 20 years ago now. And this is one of those weird versions that Classic had with the 20-inch barrel and Russian language manual, which is one reason I haven't SBR'd it or cut the barrel and permanently attached, because it's so goofy. It's kind of cool. But these feed from 92 mags or other Beretta type mags, and really started off as a police and civilian carbine, but there is a militarized version known as the MX4, short 12-inch barrel and select fire. And those have actually become pretty popular for places like India. And that gets us to the PMX, the latest generation here. And this is a very conventional tube gun. So let's kind of, I don't know, just talk about it, see if we can figure out a reason for this existing and maybe point out why I was so excited for it after all. First and foremost, the PMX really is just a 21st century version of the M12. The M12 kind of took over from the original MAB series, the 38 series, in 1959-1960, and over the next 2 decades kind of supplanted these. Now, whereas the MABs were primarily used by military and some police forces, a lot of the users of the M12 were carabinieri and other police forces, although some special forces and the Italian Air Force would acquire some. They were also popular exports, the M12 that is, to places like the Middle East, Africa, and somewhat in South America, even being produced under license by Taurus. Again, the CX4, MX4, that was a different market. Hard to explain. But it does have this kind of unique modern Beretta styling. And you have to wonder, when this was introduced around 2003, if that did not kind of get them wondering about how to update the M12, which was still in production then and has been up until recently. They would actually introduce the M12S in 1978 and the M12S2 a short time later, improved safety, a few other things. And around 2010, 2011, rumblings of this started to happen, and development would occur at Beretta over the next few years, and the earliest kind of showpieces would be shown off in 2017, and these would hit the market, at least the original MPX, in 2018. But the MPX-S, the semi-auto, started off as a single shot option carbine in Europe, and of course was just introduced to the USA in 2023, so quite new here. And you will notice that, like the original MAB style, we have a straight mag here and here. There was talk about having these take pistol style mags like the CX4 or maybe some other mags, but in the end Beretta really just felt kind of going with a proprietary mag was the best way to go. Here are the mags out, both same capacity. The original mags were among the first double stack, double feed. If these look like Uzi mags, there's a pretty good reason for that. In a lot of ways, the MAB series inspired the Uzi. Then you get to the MPX mag. Obviously, they're a lot lighter because they're almost all polymer. Double stack, double feed, and they have kind of more rounded off feed lips, which Beretta insists are more durable, especially when you leave them loaded. I don't know. Right now, I've only ever seen the 30 rounds, but there's talk of 20. I'm sure other sizes will be made over time. They're very light. Very reminiscent of other modern SMG mags, like the B&Ts. Kind of neat, though. Really do like the CX4, but it just wasn't the way forward for a modern police submachine gun. But what's neat about both of these is these are true Italian-built guns, whereas if you want to do an MAB, you've got to do some kind of kit build or have a pre-86 sample, something like that. One thing I do find interesting, this is a non-reciprocating charging handle, and this reciprocates. Because in some ways, this is a much simpler submachine gun, and it actually reminds us of a blast from the past, a blast from the 1980s. So let's clear the decks and focus on the MPX-S. I should point out that Beretta has built roughly 10,000, about half for Italian police and other forces, and I think most recently Saudi Arabia ordered around 3,500 for Royal Guard, a few hundred here and there for other police forces. And one of their big reasons, it is just an updated M12, and a lot of forces are very familiar with the controls of the M12, so familiar manual of arms. And there's a lot familiar here. This is not a revolutionary, it is at most an evolutionary submachine gun, or in this case, pistol caliber pistol? PCP? Wait, that doesn't sound right. So what do we have here? Like the military gun, this has a 6.9-inch barrel. It is cold hammer forged, chrome lined, and it is threaded 1/2x28. Comes with a simple muzzle nut with a small wrench flat on the front. The overall length, without a stock, or if it had a stock, if it was folded, 16.5 inches. And if we had a stock on here, would be about a 25.25. Weight, unloaded, around 6 to 6.5 pounds, kind of depending on the setup and configuration. This might seem like an all-polymer gun, and the lower certainly is, but actually, this upper tube, while it has kind of a polymer outer coating, is metal underneath. So what else? We already have mentioned the mags briefly. It is an ambidextrous mag catch, ambidextrous, and relatively short throw safety here. Fixed trigger guard, trigger, pistol grip. Kind of a nice grip. It is well textured. The size actually suits me quite well. Interesting for a modern gun. This is a reciprocating charging handle. And it does have a bolt hold open with release on this side. And flipping it over, here's the open bolt. And yes, you can place your charging handle on the right side if you prefer. But I actually really like it on the left, meaning you can keep your firing hand on the grip using your offhand to manipulate the handle. We do have ambi sling loops, front, back. We do have a top monolithic pick rail, which is metal. And then we have metal side rails that are unboltable. And then we do have a polymer bottom rail that's integral to the lower part, although it does have a removable hand stop with this kind of little loop under it. And that's really about it, guys. Pretty standard little gun, frankly. So there's not a lot new or innovative here to speak about. But why was I looking forward to it? And am I disappointed? Well, the answer is no, I'm not disappointed. And I'm trying to explain why in just this initial tabletop review. Shooting is, of course, proof of the pudding. For one thing, actually has a very nice trigger. Very short pull and reset. And for a submachine gun, comparing it to, say, that CX4 or a Scorpion or any of that, it's one of the nicest. The mag catch is also quite large, easy to use. The ergonomics, maybe it looks blocky, but it actually does feel good in the hands. It also feels good when you go to manipulate parts. This is a Beretta, and it feels like it has Beretta quality. For a polymer gun, it's very smooth, and you can really hold it one-handed quite well. Of course, one of the reasons I wanted it, it's an odd gun, it's a Beretta, and it's based on a military police gun. And historically, these are the guns that are likely to go away sooner than later. Don't believe me? Well, there's this. You didn't think we were going to do this video and not mention Beretta's ARX 100, did you? These came out around, well, right about 10 years ago. I bought mine, not this one, but my first one in 2014. And people criticized them for being $1,500 new then. Okay, fair. Even when they dropped to under $1,000, a lot of people didn't buy. And then they disappeared, and now they're gone, and people want them. Now, is this objectively better than an AR-15? No, not really. It is lighter, and despite the pregnant, guppy look, the ergonomics are actually quite nice. One thing that this does well is being truly ambidextrous. But it also just does well in the fact that it's a true Italian Beretta. And the quality's there. Even if it is polymer, it's kind of hard to think of a quality polymer gun, but there you go. And I see what's happened here with these, and so I have to wonder here. But it's not just the fact that I think these will probably be a pretty short-lived thing, because at their current price point of, again, around $1,500, they're not going to sell many of these. I don't think Beretta expects to. I think they'll bring over a couple of batches, and then that'll be it, much like with the ARX. Honestly, after the relatively meh sales of the ARX, I'm surprised they're doing this now, but yeah, they have their reasons, and they probably understood they could sell a few hundred or a few thousand in America, and since they were already tooled up to make these for military and police customers, why not? And that kind of brings me to another thing I really do like about this. This is very similar to what they're using, just with the semi-only lower. One particular area I'm happy with is back here. You know, with recent arm brace stuff, that option's kind of out the door. But if you look, there's a hinge and a pin here. Now there's a block in the back with the QD sling socket. But if you were to SBR this, or if you were to put it on an extension, because again this is half by 28, extend it out to 16 inches, either way, you can make this into a carbine or SBR, and it appears that the military stock would drop right on. Funnily enough, while they're not interchangeable, it looks to have the same system as on the ARX. Looking here at the pivot system, kind of the multi, the way it folds over, how double in the button, same kind of deal on this side. You know, those two little things. Now the ARXs is a little bit taller, a little bit thicker, so I don't believe they would be interchangeable with each other. But it does kind of add to that whole sense of a family of guns. Even with the pregnant guppy look, all in all. So I'm really happy they didn't neuter the rear of this, basically just pinning in a pistol block. Now there are a couple of criticisms I do have about the version of the PMX-S we received. As you saw at the beginning, we actually get a pretty nice case, and we do get 2 of these mags. Now these are proprietary, so hopefully Beretta will make these available. They're polymer, shouldn't be too expensive. So if these mags are made available, let's say 20 bucks, 25, cool. Otherwise, not being able to swap out the lower to take more common mags will be a detriment on the market. Then again, probably only collectors are going to be buying these, if we're being realistic. Which does kind of make me want to complain about what's up here, or rather, the lack thereof. Somewhat ironically, me being me, I'm going to complain about the fact that these don't come with the flip iron sights. Why? The ARX came with its sights. Yeah, they're kind of ugly. I know that. But it came with them. I really wish the PMX would come with its sights, because they're pretty distinctive, and they're frankly a lot more usable on a PCC or PCP than on a carbine. Because, yeah, most people getting a 223 are just going to put on a red dot, a magnifier, whatever. But with a 9mm gun, 7-inch barrel, some people might want to just rock with some iron sights. If nothing else, it's kind of nice to be able to just, you know, take this apart and go to the range as it is from the box and not worry about it putting on a sight later. But as it is, we're just kind of going the flat top route. And that wouldn't be so bad, except the price point. This is more expensive than, say, an Evo 3 or a Kel-Tec or whatever. It's not as expensive as a B&T, though, so there is that. But since they were already making the sights for other contracts, I found it a little odd they didn't go ahead and include them. So that would be kind of my major grump about the accessories, or one lack thereof. Of course, 3 mags would have been better than 2, but 2 is still better than 1. And I do expect it to have Beretta quality, longevity. But on the other hand, keep in mind, this is using proprietary parts. So if anything breaks, which I don't think it will, but with these ARXs, there was a issue about firing pins a while back. So keep that in mind. So I want to take this apart, and then I want to show you how this really reminds us of something from the 80s, and maybe one of the coolest factors to me that makes it worthwhile. Being on current YouTube, I can only do a little bit at a time here. There is a front pin to push out. You can use a bullet tip, and it is fully captive. That's nice. You're not going to lose it. And then you just have to kind of manhandle the upper and lower apart. They actually fit very tight together. And at first I wasn't sure what to do, but no, I just realized you just pull them apart. Take a look. So they only move apart about 1/2 inch, and then you can just separate the lower, which is one polymer piece. Trigger is up here. From the upper, which is more of a tube. And to further take it apart, you unscrew this cap. Is this starting to remind anyone of anything? You just start unscrewing it. There's a bit of a detent in here. You can kind of feel it. And it actually has quite a bit of threading, so it's not going to come loose accidentally. So yeah, just unscrew that. Here's our cap. Separate from it is actually the dual recoil spring, and there is a bit of a buffer in the back here. This does not rotate and does have a notch on the underside to keep it timed properly. Notice how the springs actually step down, and our rear sling loop is just a keyed collar. It actually keys in the back here. With that out, you just pull this back, get the bolt handle in the notch. Let me fiddle with it just a sec, guys. It's like any of these guns, you just kind of, there we go. It actually is partially held in by the recoil spring too. And here's our bolt. Now, one change they did from the original M12, that had a telescoping bolt. This does not, as you see. It's just one massive and right now greasy piece. The M12 and MPX have basically the same stock folded, collapsed, and stock deployed length, 16.5, 25, and some change inches. But the M12 had a near 8-inch barrel, and this has a near 7. So where they really lose that inch of barrel is because they do not have the telescoping bolt. One little neat feature, in here, there's a spring-loaded divot. And that actually provides just a little bit of resistance when the bolt goes into battery. You see little kind of notches on top of the bolt there. That just ever so slightly is a mechanical delay on its opening. Just a tiny little in battery and then fire, and then just a split second delay before it blows back. Just a tiniest bit of resistance. I think that's neat, and it's a bit of a safety feature as well. So you see how this is a tube with an unscrewing end. Does this remind you of something? Well, it should, because having this kind of polymer lower shell and a metal tube upper, it's like the old Kellgren, the Tech 9 from the 1980s, later to be the AB-10, a gun we featured on this channel more than once. Now that was out of Sweden, at least the initial design, and it's a submachine gun, a lot of back and forth. And of course, Brugger and Tomat, B&T, did their version, but in relatively limited numbers. Well, Beretta, with the M12 and now the MPX, has really taken that basic upper-lower tube gun with threaded end. And of course, the Tech 9 was not a military gun at all. It was a civilian gun, a fun gun, a cheap gun. And they've made this military tough, military strong. It's still cheap though. Military users pay well under $1,000 for these each, which would be nice if we could, but then again, we're probably not buying 3,500 like Saudi Arabia at a time. But I do kind of find it neat in an 80s nostalgia way, but that this is kind of like a beefed up, modernized Kel-Tec Tech 9, or DC-9, or AB-10, or any of its other myriad names, KG-9, KG-99. Anyway, I'll stop. Wanted to put the bolt and the handle back in to show you that little bit of resistance. You can hear it there. And when you push it back, and then it goes. It is a very smooth bolt travel. I'm actually quite impressed with how smooth this travel is, and how nice this trigger is. So those do impress me. But am I happy with this? Is it a keeper? Well, let's end with some final thoughts and course, next time we'll go to the range, because always the proof's in the pudding there. So let's end where we began. This isn't going to take the gun market by storm, and I don't think Beretta expects it to. I think it's just interesting, neat, that they're giving us their current submachine gun. And in most ways, I'm reasonably impressed with it, if not bowled over. I do find that the trigger and the bolt travel are quite smooth for what it is. And weight and balance, ergonomics, not bad at all. And I do love the throwbacks to Tech 9 days. I do hope additional mags become available, other accessories as well. This isn't going to replace anything on a practical front, but it doesn't need to. The market is big enough. We can have curiosities and just unique, interesting guns. And the PCC market and similar guns, they're really taking off with the relative good cost of 9mm compared with 223, 7.62 by 39, so on and so forth. Of course, the true test will be how it shoots. I expect it to shoot just fine. It's a Beretta. It's a proven design. It's also one of the newest designs. Typically, it takes more than 5 years to see something in semi-auto form over here. But then again, a conversion to semi-auto is pretty straightforward compared to something else. What do you think? Do you see a purpose, a point behind this? I can understand if you don't. I wish it were cheaper, but knowing Beretta, it's just probably not likely to be. Not unless he's going clearance, much like the ARX 100s did at the end. I would say if you want one, great, pick one up. But if it doesn't appeal to you, that's fine as well. But I am quite excited to shoot it, and I suspect it will get a sling. But first, we do have to see how it works out at the range. And I'll need to get some iron sights for it or something to put on it, because that does kind of irk me that it doesn't have that. But yeah, let us know in the comments below. This is an impromptu video, totally off the cuff, not scripted, not planned. So if it seems a little disjointed, apologies for that. But just wanted to give my initial thoughts this weekend on at least something new. In a world full of clones, copies, and reinventions, this is at least new, for better or worse. So, with that, as always, if you could, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to help us get out to the range, check out the link to the Patreon. On behalf of Fox and the rest of the crew, this is Misha, and hopefully when the weather improves, we'll catch you very soon at the range with this here Beretta PMX-S. Catch you then.